we need to understand the fitna of wealth and the potential blameworthy nature of wealth if we don't use it in the right way. There's a fitna. And it's a fitna in both ways. That it could be a fitna in having too much, and it could be a fitna in having too little. And whatever state that we're in, we want to learn how to be in relation to wealth, whether we fall on this side of the scale or on that side of the scale. There are traits that we need to have and virtues that we could potentially have in relation to wealth, and that's really the goal, is that in relation to wealth, is that we pass the test and exemplify the virtues where when Allah looks to our heart, He sees contentment. He sees that we don't desire what people have. He sees generosity. And some of us might reach that state where the highest manifestation of generosity is Iḥyā'r, where we have an ability to even prefer people over our own selves. And then the highest degree of Iḥyā'r is even when we're in absolute need and maybe even our life is on the line. And there might only be a few people who ever reach that degree because it's so lofty. So he's saying here that the only way in which anyone can protect himself from money's deadly venom, ooh, what a way to say it, is to observe 5 rules. Okay, these are duties that, if you will, life, she translates it as rules, but you can also think of it as duties or rules. What is the first? أن يعرف مقصود المال. The first is to understand the purpose of wealth. So again, this is repeated multiple times. This is the number one duty. And this is something, if we were intelligent, we would know early on, before we embark upon establishing a career. This is something that as parents, we should be teaching our children from the earliest of ages to understand what is the maqsood, what is the purpose, what is the wisdom of wealth, why it was created, and that for which a person requires it, so as to avoid obtaining or keeping it except for the amount he needs and to avoid giving it more importance than it deserves. So, what is the purpose of wealth? The number one purpose of wealth is to facilitate the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then everything else that we need in order to be able to do that. So we get back to, and this gets back to the 2 main benefits, okay? And that we spoke about that yesterday in session number 4, okay? So when we talked about spending on oneself for worship and that which assists in worship. This is the number one wisdom and purpose of wealth. And so everything that we need to live as human beings is included in that second category, right? Because if we didn't have wealth, we wouldn't be able to buy food, all the basic necessities of life. We wouldn't have clothing. We wouldn't have a house or shelter. So the basic necessities, we need wealth in order to secure those for us. And so this is the purpose. And when we understand that, then we are positioning ourselves first and foremost to have a healthy relationship with it. Now, so the first is to understand the purpose of wealth. And we had to mention worship first. Why? Because this is the reason for which we were created. And again, we might be very distant from this in terms of our day-to-day and all of the detailed things that we do throughout our day. But we have to understand that this is real. We want to live like this, where we try our best to connect ourselves to purpose in everything that we do.